speaking of the Chicago Cubs, it's a you watch baseball. We talked about this the other day, and when you compare the NFL and the contracts in baseball, I brought up the situation that it is a rarity in baseball when you talk about some of these injuries and when guys take a pitch to the head, right? Well, I'll tell you right now, we've got a former player to talk a little more about that because he's got a great book that's already out. Adam Greenberg's book is called Get Up, The Art of Perseverance, which is now available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iBooks. Just throughout the first pitch back in July 7th at Wrigley Field for the Cubs-Pirates game, he was drafted by the Cubs. His first at-bat in the bigs. He took one right on the helmet, right on the head. And I tell you, it's a great journey, an inspirational story to get back to the bigs, and that's what he was able to do. And Adam, I appreciate a couple moments. How are you, pal?
I'm doing great, Rich. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, I appreciate it. And listen, this is really amazing because we just happened to talk about this yesterday. And I actually went back and I looked at the video, and that's a scary moment. I'm just wondering, and I know it's something that's always going to be in the back of your mind. That play to me, we're not even talking about a career-defining moment. I would assume that is a life-defining moment. Do you have any recollections of that day and that at-bat?
Oh, I mean, I remember every second of that at-bat, and even the fact of what I felt like when I was hit, my eyes rolling in the back of my head, grabbing my head, holding it like I thought, holding it together because I thought it split open, and saying 2 words 3 times: "Stay alive, stay alive, stay alive." So I vividly remember. I even remember waking up and knowing that it was the greatest day of my life because I had accomplished what I wanted to since I was 5 years old and play Major League Baseball, and that was going to be the day that I had already signed the contract, so I was going to be on the field and get to live my dream out. So it was, as you just said, though, it wasn't just something that defined my career. It was something that has definitely defined me as a person and my life.
Now, you played college ball at North Carolina Chapel Hill, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. You now, what was that, 2001 or 2002 Major League Baseball draft with the Cubs?
2002.
Okay. I can't imagine that. I mean, because like you said, you put so much time and effort into it. What were some of the after effects that you dealt with? Because I'm sure you suffer concussion here and there, but I'm just wondering, you talk about the physical anguish, but what about the mental anguish and thinking to yourself, man, I might never be able to get a chance to play again?
Yeah, I mean, when I was, I'll start off with when I was laying on the ground and the training staff came over to me and they asked the standard questions once I finally kind of was able to sit up, and they started asking me a couple questions. They did the basic holding fingers in front of me and asking how many they were holding up, and then had me follow their fingers. And then the last question that they asked was, where were you 2 days ago? And I looked them dead in the eye and I said, I was in the minor leagues and I'm not going back. I mean, it was like that definitive that this is where I'm here to stay. But after I was hit, I obviously suffered a concussion. Getting 92-mile-an-hour fastball to the head, yeah, you're going to get a concussion. But it was the positional vertigo and the vision issues that really affected me for the next 2.5 years. Post-concussion symptoms, obviously they lingered, but positional vertigo meant when I would look down or lean back or what have you, my eyes would shift uncontrollably side to side. I would black out, I would faint, obviously lose balance, and that was something that it's non-visual. I mean, you could see when it was happening, my eyes would go side to side, but then I was left with migraine-type headaches for hours. And then the vision problems, that was probably the most challenging thing because I was wondering why I was struggling so bad the following season. And it was really, really just like I put in this more time than I ever have on the field, batting practice, hitting, and just the on-the-field translation of success just wasn't there. So it was a 2.5-year real struggle because I was 24 years old at the time. I had accomplished my dream. The last thing in the world that I wanted to do was not be on the field. So trying to play through those symptoms and those issues was the only thing that I knew, because I couldn't really even explain what I was going through to the media, to the team, to the coaching staff. And that was where things got dark for me, because it wasn't like it is now, where a concussion protocol existed. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally the next day they they knew I wasn't going to play the next day, but as soon as I got back to after the All-Star break, it's like, are you ready to go? So it's just night and day difference, and I'm grateful for what happened to me, that so many people now have this protocol, and concussions and brain issues and brain trauma. It's being dealt with in a much better manner, so people's lives won't be affected negatively to the effect that it was for me at that time.
I'm just wondering, when you bounce around, when you get released by Chicago, was there a part of you that felt, man, I really got robbed here, right? One at bat, not fair. I mean, were you bitter?
So when I got released, it was a mutual release. I went to the team with my agent, and we spoke to them and just said, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a fit here anymore. And the relationships that I had within the organization were so strong. Some were afraid, I'll be honest, because of with what I went through and the non-visual. I didn't have a cast on my arm or my leg, and this is exactly what's wrong, and this is when you're going to be back. It left some questions for certain people within the organization. That was devastating to me. And because when somebody like me, who's 5'8" 3/4", I'm white, I'm Jewish, I'm from a small town in Connecticut, I overcame a ton to get to the big leagues.
Right.
The last thing in the world I want to do, and not to mention, I wasn't even collecting service days. I got sent down
Which
literally
is rough.
21 days after me.
Yeah.
So I had nothing to gain. So I think when I went to the Cubs halfway through the season, I said, I think it's time we part ways. That was devastating. There was no resentment. There was no animosity. It was just sadness. It was sadness because I wanted to be a part of the team that won the World Series like they just did. And so I had that total bittersweet kind of mentality when they won last year because I so wanted to be a part of it.
Again, a couple minutes with former Major Leaguer Adam Greenberg. Again, Rich Quinones here. Adam just came out with a book. It's been out for a while right now. Get Up, The Art of Perseverance, which is now available for sale online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iBooks. You bounced around a little bit in the minors here and there, and you had some opportunities with a couple other clubs. Now, I read here, and correct me if I'm wrong, you actually went back and forgive me if I don't get the year correct. I guess it was maybe 2010, 2011 in the minors. You actually faced De Los Santos again when he was pitching for Long Island, did you not?
Yeah, and it's to me that was my major league at bat. I got to relive it all over again. He didn't mean to hit me when he did. It totally affected the rest of his career because in 2005 he was having a career year for himself, and then after he hit me, I think it was like 14 innings pitched, 14 earned runs, and he was basically out of the big leagues. So we both found ourselves in independent ball, just had shoulder surgery, came back in 5 months instead of 10 that they were saying, and I was on the field opening night of the season, and sure enough, De Los Santos comes in the 8th inning, and I got to face him. So it was literally like reliving that at bat, and the first pitch he threw me was a cut fastball at about 90 miles an hour in at my hip, and I kind of stepped out of the batter's box. I looked at him, was like, really? You're going to throw something in at me? I'm thinking he's going to throw way the heck away, ball one, but I looked at him and really just kind of locked eyes, and I was like, all right, let's go. If you're good now, I'm good. And there was no way in heck he was going to get me out that at bat. I fought off a couple pitches, 1-2, threw me a couple sliders, and then I finally hooked one in the hole for a base hit. So for me, you want to call it redemption, you want to call it whatever, I just call it was special, and it was an at bat that I'll cherish forever. Because it felt like there was 50,000 people in the stadium. There might have been 500, but for he and I, it was really cool to kind of close the book on that chapter.
You brought up something really interesting. Is people, I think sometimes you always look at the player that got hit, and sometimes you forget about the player or the pitcher in this case throwing that pitch and how it can affect. It could affect both careers. I mean, even if you look at some of the players over the years, whether it was when Zimmer got hit, when Cagliario got hit, Herb Score back in the day in the 50s, when he got hit with the line drive and the right out, you always got to. I know it's hard when you're the victim of it, of circumstance, but you always, you think about the one throwing the pitch, and sometimes you're right. It's like a boxer, a great fighter, or a prospect when he gets knocked out. You watch his career the next 3 or 4 fights to see how he handles it, if he gets knocked out or not. And in this case, it adversely affected the pitcher as well as yourself.
Yeah, and I always like to make clear mention of that, because whatever life throws, and I just kind of make the analogy, life throws you curveballs, but for me, life threw me a 90-mile-an-hour fastball in the back of my head. But everyone involved, it impacts them, and it certainly did impact him just as much as it did me. But he wasn't, I'm sure, getting the questions that I was. He had nothing visual. He wasn't injured.
Yep.
It was all upstairs. It
Yep.
was all mental. And it wasn't until an interview that he did with ESPN Outside the Lines, I believe it was 2012, that and I hadn't really had any communication with him, and I saw him being interviewed, and he said, the first thing that I thought was, this kid's dead. And I'd never heard anything like that from him. So to hear 7 years later in an interview him saying that, no wonder he was affected.
Yeah.
And so everything in life that anyone gets thrown at, everyone is going to react and respond differently. So I was sad for me that it happened, because I wanted to play. And I'm also sad for him, because he didn't want that to happen to him in his career and feel like he almost killed somebody. So it's kind of how you deal with and handle adversity when it strikes, and that's really the point of the book. Whether you're a sports fan,
Yep.
which most people listening to this show obviously are, but even not. I mean, it's really just about life and overcoming obstacles and challenges, and we've been dealt a hand, and we just have to make the best of it, because life's going to go with or without us. And I kind of like to choose that get up mentality. So when I hear somebody was affected, it's whatever I can do for him to help him is gonna ultimately help me as well.
You eventually had another at bat when there was an online petition started for yourself, a campaign, and it got through with the Marlins, and it was a game against the Mets. And I actually, I know you struck out on 3 pitches, but who cares about that? I think the best compliment you probably got, and you already know this, I guess they asked R.A. Dickey, how are you going to face him? And he said, listen, I'm facing this kid like he's any other major league hitter. To me, that's a compliment.
Yeah, I mean, that whole experience was a compliment, and you said it best. There was one group of people that I cared about. And sorry for this, I didn't care about the media. I didn't care about the fans. I didn't care about my family. I didn't care about my friends. I cared about the guys who were playing the game and who have ever played the game. And that was it. What they felt about my situation getting called back up the way that I did. And it was because I earned it on the field. I always want to make sure, because I'm not a charity case. I earned it the first time, and I earned it the second time.
Right.
So to hear the Cy Young Award-winning knuckleballer, yes, of course I get to face him after 7 years in his best year, but I get to face him and have him say he's going to pitch me like the big leaguer that I am, and have my teammates stand up and say in the clubhouse, guys, he's a part of our team. This is not a circus. This is not a joke. I played with him in this organization. I played with him in this organization. And a lot of those guys, that was the definitive factor for me that I deserved to be there. And not like, that's not my personality, me, but it felt so good to be welcomed and received by my teammates and by the players and the training and the coaching staff in the big leagues, that I was like, this is it. I'm at peace with anything that happens tomorrow in baseball. So you said the at bat, I struck out. Every time I see it, I beg and plead, just get a hit.
Right.
But that's not my story, and that's not life's story. It doesn't always have to be the result of when you get to wherever your final destination is. It's the journey leading up to it, and then what do you do after that happens?
No, I agree 100%. And you're right. I mean, especially, listen, to go through what you did, or any player for that matter, to deal with that type of adversity, but still want to pursue the dream and get out there, and whether you get that at bat or not, whether you you drive in a run or hit a bloop single or you strike out, just the fact that you've almost like trained yourself to not give up, right? I mean, that's the thing, right? The minors, it's so hard because guys toil around. Look what Tebow's doing right now, and he's actually showing that he can play a little bit. Now, listen, people, and I was a little indifferent, but you can't knock a guy for wanting to pursue his dream, whether it's ridiculous or not. You just got to respect that.
Well, that's it. Passion is everything, and you kind of we're talking about a few things, and it is a skill. It is an art, and you have to work at it. Hence the term of the title of my book. It's Get Up, the art of perseverance. It's not saying everyone has it, but you have to work at it. And I don't think Tebow cares what anyone says. And he shouldn't, because if he wants to and he has the passion, then if somebody's going to give him the opportunity, then by all means go. And I think it comes in play with a lot of guys in sports. In sports, when somebody is getting older and they're not performing at that level that they were used to or accustomed to or the fans are used to seeing, they're always saying, oh, he should retire. I mean, how many times have you guys had that conversation of anybody?
Say it a lot on the air, yeah.
So, but who's the one to determine that? If somebody's going to pay somebody or somebody's going to sign them, if they want to go out on their terms because that's what they love and that's what they know, well, who's to say that they're wrong? It's the passion and the drive and the wanting to persevere through whatever challenges that they have. When somebody's getting older, guess what? It's just more obstacles, it's more challenges. And you want to prove to yourself. It's not that you're going to be the guy that you were necessarily, but it's just a new challenge for guys and people who are competitive. How can you fault them for that? So a guy like Tebow, I respect him to no end. Whether he makes it or not, of course, in his mind right now, he believes he's going to. No question. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing this. But if he doesn't, once he's done, he can know and lay his head down at night because we're not him. We're not in his mind. Just like the same way I had people all the time. Why are you still doing this? I was making $2,000 a month for 5 months with no health insurance in my 30s. What was I doing? Why was I doing it? Because I had a drive and a passion and determination that there was no price tag on.
Right.
You weren't going to take it away, because when I laid my head down at night, and this is the truth, I was never at peace. I was never comfortable knowing that I had not made it back to the big leagues. So everyone has their own drivers, their own things, and if it's filled with passion, poof, let them go. It's awesome. Support it, because I think people should take something from that instead of knocking it. Join it, not go play a sport and try to do it, but learn from watching somebody with passion what that's like in the quality of that person's life, because I guarantee you quality of those people's lives ultimately has just more happiness. Not just about money, it's about happiness, and God bless him for doing what he's doing.
Couple more before I let you get out of here. Do you follow the game still? Obviously you missed the game, so it's a foolish question to even ask, but do you follow the game? Right? Do you follow the game like are you watching like MLB, you watching these games on ESPN, or do you just kind of catch them from time to time?
I don't watch as much as I did when I was young, for sure. I was just at the All-Star game. I just went to the Home Run Derby. When I see the guys on MLB TV or MLB Network or ESPN or what, I love it. I always have a place in my heart for the game of baseball. I'm a fan of the sport, less a specific team. I grew up a Yankee fan. I played for the Cubs, played for the Marlins, played for a ton of teams. So I have ties all over. So when I was down at the All-Star game and I was running into, I'm like, man, I know a lot of people just because I play for so many teams. Call it good or bad. I mean, I was released by a ton and didn't sign back with a bunch of others. So, but just playing for so long, I love the sport. I still teach hitting lessons. I put up a batting cage at my house. I go help the local high schools and little leagues, and it gives me such joy because I learn from so many incredible people, and I have so much knowledge of the game and love for it. I've got to be a part at some level. So I have a son now. He's 18 months. He's obsessed with the game. We'll play catch. Yes, he's 18 months, and he's hitting ball off a tee, and he wants to just hit. He says, bat, ball. So it's in my blood, and I love it, and it's just so fun to see the excitement of the game, and the rejuvenation of guys throwing 100 and guys hitting the ball 500 feet. It's just awesome, and so I really love the game, and I had a blast this week down there watching it.
I would imagine so. Right up close when you seen Aaron Judge up there just swinging away left and right, putting up ridiculous numbers. Listen, it's a young man's game right now. We know that, right? We're seeing like that influx of some of these guys. We got Trout right in our backyard, Cumberland County kid, Millville High School kid now with the Angels. So I'm curious too. You talk about the competitive fire, and I can hear it and the passion through your voice. I would imagine that's the same mindset and mentality you take when you kind of travel all over. You're talking to these 500 Fortune 500 companies. You're talking about goal setting, health, wellness, perseverance. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would just imagine you up there with a couple, maybe a couple hundred people or a couple thousand people. It seems as though you kind of treat that like an at bat.
That's it. And you said it. I mean, anything that I'm going to do, I'm going to give it 110%. I'm going to be passionate about it. And when I get an opportunity to speak to people, companies, groups, I want them to leave inspired. I want them to be motivated to say, oh my God, I could do anything. So those are my at-bats. I do get excited. I get those. Most of the time, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say before I get up there, because I like to really understand who I'm talking to, what they're doing, what their struggles are, because it's just like baseball. When you get in the batter's box, each at-bat is different. Each pitcher is different. They're going to throw different things at you. So each group that I speak to, it's the exact same thing. So I get the kind of nervous butterflies, and then it's just and then it's go time. So yeah, I love it. I do treat it as an at-bat. I treat everyone that I meet as somebody that I can connect with and help in any capacity, mentally, emotionally, nutrition-wise, health and wellness. I mean, it's just all life's about, being there for other people, using your experiences to help others, and then great things happen. I've been surrounded by amazing people, and I'm really fortunate. It wasn't the way that I anticipated it turning out, but I'm okay with it.
I know you're a Connecticut guy. You doing some stuff with PG Sports?
Of course, yeah. He's awesome. I was introduced to him a bunch of years ago. I was with the Orioles. He sent me some shirts, and then he's done a couple video pieces on me more recently, and he helps me with my social media. So he's a awesome guy. Great company.
Yeah, Paul. He's a young kid, man. Now that's called grinding. He's hustling. That's what it takes. So. That's part of it.
I mean, as you know, he's a special kid, wheelchair bound. You would never know it.
Yep.
And you when you look at somebody like that with that type of passion,
yep.
determination, you count your blessings every day.
Yep.
And you're like, I want to be surrounded by people like that. It doesn't matter what your place in this world is. It's just people that are driven and want to do well and want to do well for others. And yeah, I got a special place in my heart for him.
No, he's a good kid, and he's got a good heart as well, a good product too. Well, listen, hey, the best of luck with the book. I think it's a great story. I think it's the epitome of perseverance. Like you said, it doesn't always have to be sports. It's just life in general, right? It's cliche, but you get knocked down. It's the ones that get back up, not the ones that kind of hide under the covers. You gotta get up every day, and you gotta produce. I mean, at the end of the day, you just gotta keep going. And I think. That's exactly what you've done. So congrats on the book. The best of luck of going forward. Listen, I'm sure it might be a movie one day. We have to grab the rights for that. Could be something with Disney. Who knows?
Hey, give me a call. You got my number.
You got it. All right. We'll right. The paperwork is coming through as we speak.
All right. That sounds good, Rich.
All right, Adam. I appreciate it, pal. Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
All right. You got it. Good stuff there, Adam Greenberg.